Everybody just get some coffee. Are you serious? Calm down. Are you serious? Israel on the brink. Seriously, this morning, the judicial reform bill, part of it, passed this morning by a vote of 64 to nothing. Netanyahu wins the vote. Now, there's 120 members of the Knesset. That means that 56 members of the Knesset walked out, did not even vote. They stormed out of the Knesset and refused to vote. So the vote ended up being 64 to nothing, and that means the judicial overhaul begins. The judicial reform process begins, taking the power away from the Supreme Court in Israel and giving it the majority of the power going to the legislative branch, which for some reason has caused the people in the country, half of them angry about this change and the other half happy about the change. And so the angry ones are protesting, and it's across all sectors of the population. This is an strange, incredible situation. Let me tell you all about it and what it means in just a moment. But first, let me put a shout out right now for www.mypillow.com/Paul. Use the promo code Paul. That's right. www.mypillow. I got to say something about MyPillow because I've met Mike Lindell twice. What a great character. First time I ever met him was at a religious broadcasting convention that was going on in Nashville, Tennessee. And how I met him was I was in the buffet line at a restaurant, and so was he. And I actually walked up behind him, and so we started talking. And it's the first time I ever talked to him. It was about 6 years ago. And then I met him again, ran into him again at the down in Miami, Florida, at one of those conventions earlier this year, in which it was just a fleeting, how you doing kind of thing. But we do represent his pillows, since Walmart and Target and Bed Bath & Beyond and Kohl's and all these different groups, these stores threw his pillows in the street. We went and started representing them, and I have them on every bed in my home. They're just amazing pillows. Go there now, and when you do, go to mypillow.com/Paul, and then use the promo code Paul. And there you see it. It's the 20th anniversary. They're doing an incredible sale on the queen size pillows. They've reduced the prices down from $69 now down to $19.98. Also, you've got the 2.0 pillows that they're selling right now, which are incredible. There's everything going on. They've got the towels. It's just everything. Okay, the towels overstocked. They got an 80% sale going on. The slippers, you can get these now for $25. You got to use that promo code Paul. Biggest bed sheet sale ever. The Giza sheet sets now $29.98 if you use that promo code Paul. Again, in the mattress toppers 2.0, nice and cool. They've reduced those down. Use that promo code Paul on everything, okay? Use that promo code Paul. So that go to www.mypillow.com/Paul. Use the promo code Paul. They gave a special deal for the Paul Begley Prophecy online church, and Mike is sharing the gospel of Jesus Christ. So it's a My Pillow apocalypse. Yeah, thank you. Really, it is. They're good. He's a good guy. He's getting the job done, and so we thank God for him. Amen. Now let's talk about what's happening in Israel, because what's happening in Israel is it's crazy, and I don't know where this thing is going to go, and I'm very concerned because it's a divided nation, extremely divided. First time in 75 years that the nation of Israel is this divided. But social concerns is really what's driving this right now. The people are very afraid, I guess, that that somehow that their social norms are going to change drastically. It's not what Netanyahu is saying, but and so there's half the country is for Netanyahu and half is against him because he says that unless they make these changes, the country is in a dangerous situation because it's basically being completely controlled by a Supreme Court of 15 people, of which 13 are liberal justices. And there is no constitution there, so they don't rule based on a constitution. They just rule based on what they feel, how they feel about things. Well, based on what? Okay, so that's the problem. So having said that, what does that all mean? Okay, in this dangerous times as Israel's on the brink. Well, let's just read what the liberal media is saying about it. Israel's parliament approves a key part of the judicial overhaul that has exposed deep fissures in the society. In Jerusalem this morning, Israeli lawmakers approved a key portion of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's divisive plan to reshape the country's judicial system. Despite massive protests that have exposed unprecedented fissures in Israeli society, the vote came after a stormy session this morning in which opposition lawmakers chanted "shame, shame," and then stormed out of the chamber. It reflected the determination of Netanyahu and his far-right allies to move ahead with a conservative plan, which has tested the delicate social ties that bind the country. It has rattled the cohesion of the powerful military and repeatedly has drawn concern from its closest allies, the United States of America. Now, the overhaul calls for sweeping changes amid curbing the powers of the judiciary, from limiting the Supreme Court's ability to challenge parliamentary decisions to changing the way judges are selected. Netanyahu and his allies say that the changes are needed. And let me say why. In America, you have to nominate someone to be a Supreme Court justice, and then they go through a set of hearings, and then it's voted on by the Congress. In Israel, you have 15 justices who sit on the Supreme Court, and when one is ready to retire, they pick their own replacement and put him in. And what's happened over a period of 75 years, 15 justices has turned into 13 liberals, and they just keep repeating and picking their own person. And so what Netanyahu is saying from his perspective is, you can't get anything done in the parliament because if you do anything that makes sense, the liberal justices are going to shoot it down. They're going to say it's unconstitutional, even though there is no constitution. This is their biggest problem. They don't have a constitution. So how justices are, so what this did, this just changed how Supreme Court justices are selected. They no longer can pick their own replacement. Now it has to be voted on in the Knesset and approved by the Knesset who the justices will be. And that should bring about some more sense of balance of power. But of course, if you're the liberal side of society, you don't want to make a change in how this is done because you've already got it in a 13-2 favor. Okay? And so it's incredible. They voted, and 56 lawmakers walked out. The other 64 voted, and it passed 64-0. After that, the Justice Minister, Yarvi Levine, the architect of the plan, said that the parliament had taken its first step in the important historic process of overhauling the judiciary. More mass protests are now expected. It will get worse. And the Movement for Quality Government, a civil society group, immediately announced it would challenge this new law in the Supreme Court. The grassroots protest movement condemned the vote, saying that Netanyahu's government is a bunch of extremists and showing their determination to jam their fringe, conservative, religious ideologies down the throats of the millions of citizens of Israel. No one can predict the extent of damage and social upheaval that will follow the passage of this legislation this morning, folks. But I can tell you that it don't feel good. It feels like that things are really going to come off the hinges in the next 2-3 days. No one knows. Earlier, demonstrators may have, whom feel the very foundation of their country is being eroding from their government, blocked a road leading up to the parliament. Big mall chains, gas stations shut their doors. Everybody, the 10% of the military said they're not going to report to work. 10,000 reservists said they would not, if called, they will not go. Protesting last night, water cannons had to be used in the streets of Jerusalem and in the streets of Tel Aviv to stop the rowdy crowds. It just got real ugly. And while that's going on, you have to know that this is exactly, and I'm writing that in my book. And this morning, I actually went back into my book this morning and added some more information because of what happened here, because that needs to now be in the book, because it's actually moving the prophecy of Revelation chapter 9 a little further now. Because as there's this beginning of sorrows that Jesus talked about, but when Israel, it starts to be compassed about by many armies. Now, here's what's happening. As the Jews are fighting with themselves internally, the armies against Israel, the enemies of Israel, are converging around, watching for that moment that they see the break, see the weakness, see the moment where the country is not unified to protect itself, especially when it starts happening in the military. They are looking for their angle, for their moment, when they may do a collective strike, and that would be the enemies of Israel. And so this is a very, very, very strange thing. That's a great question. Sometimes I wonder what Rabbi Yehuda Glick has to say about this. Well, it was just starting when I was there in February, so it had just started. Matter of fact, the protesting just started the day I left. I saw the people in the street with flags, but it was just barely starting. So at the time I interviewed him, it was not an issue. But I just know, so I can't speak for him, but I know the fact that he is a member of the Likud party, which is the exact same party as Benjamin Netanyahu. I also know that he's a conservative, ultra-Orthodox, so he would probably be on the side of the conservative, and he would probably be backing this change, but I can't speak for him. I also know that he ran for president of Israel. And but when Netanyahu had to resign and they had to have another election, when he saw that Netanyahu wasn't going to run, he decided then to not run as president. He backed down too. And that's why Herzog is the president right now, because Glick backed away. Then after Herzog gets elected, it's a 6-year term as president. Then there was another election which Bibi won. So it's really quite interesting because Glick wanted to go in with a Benjamin Netanyahu government. He wanted Netanyahu to be the prime minister, and he was going to be the president. So I would almost guarantee which side he's on, but I cannot speak for him. I would say he'd be on the side of this change, that he'd be on the side of the 64-0. So it would have been a great thing. Could you imagine if Yehuda Glick had become president? And I've asked him since then if he is going to run next time, which is 6 years from now. He said, only God knows. So, we'll wait and see. Heidi prophesied over him that he would be prime minister one day. We'll just wait and see. But I know one thing. What's happening in Israel, we need to pray. Because, look, it don't matter what side anybody's on this. I'm more concerned about the fact that the country is divided. The country is divided. And so even though the majority, if everybody would have voted like normal, the vote would have been 64-56. So, but what you have is a left-wing portion of the party that will not. They've learned from what they've seen went on here in America. They've seen the rioting of the year 2020. They've seen all of the shenanigans that they see and foolishness that's going on in our country in Washington, and they have learned from us, from our bad behaviors, it is starting to happen there. And it's dividing the country. And so this is very, very interesting what's going to take place. We're going to watch things very closely and see what happens. And let me just say, when she prophesied over him, she was predicting. Because somebody may say, well, he never did make it, so I guess. No, she was predicting it. Okay. I should have said use the word predicting. We in the Christian world have a lot of times use the word prophecy or prophesied. We mean predict. Okay. In most cases, sometimes we prophesy. So I better clarify that. But anyway, isn't it interesting how things are happening? So I need you to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Despite these attempts to project business as usual, Netanyahu's schedule has been disrupted because he's in the hospital. He had to have an emergency pacemaker put in yesterday morning, With a cabinet meeting and trips postponed, his doctor said that Sunday's procedure had gone smoothly. Prime Minister said in a short video that he was feeling better. And he did a short video last night from the hospital. Netanyahu paused the overhaul in March after intense pressure by protesters and labor strikes that halted outgoing flights and shut down parts of the economy. But after talks to find a compromise failed last month, he said his government would press on with the judicial overhaul. And they did, and this time there was protesting. It wasn't violent. That's good news. It's a little bit out of control, but not too bad. The more worrisome part is the fact that about 10% of the military said they would not report if called, and 10,000 reservists said they would not come. But still, you had the majority of the military intact. So the only thing I would say is pray for cooler heads to prevail, and pray that Israel is not attacked by their enemies. Okay, and so this is really, really a very dangerous time. You have extremists on both sides. You have the extreme right and you have the extreme left. We have the same thing happening here in America, where there are extremists on either side. And so it's a divided house. And a divided house, Jesus said, can't stand. And that's the situation. This is why Jerusalem has become a cup of trembling. We talked about it last night. This is why we need to pray that cooler heads prevail, that peace, because the armies that are surrounding Israel are looking for that weakness. They're looking for that division. They're looking for that not everybody on the same page. They're looking for their opportunity to where they could make a move to take Israel out. And this is all part of prophecy in the book of Zechariah. We're watching prophecy literally being fulfilled. I'm praying for everyone in Israel, all the people, for all the people, because I realize that they need to stay together. Even if they don't agree on things, they need to remain together as Israelis because of the nations surrounding them that are against them. This is a very dangerous time. But this is why we put this in our book also, Revelation 9:11. We're in the end times. Guys, if you haven't got your tickets, this would be a good day. We're only 11 days away now from our next webinar. And so let's, get your tickets. Be ready. The webinar is August the 4th. It will be, I believe, one of the most powerful ones we've ever done because, the exposure of this demonic forces of hell, the strong delusion, the fake rapture, the deceitfulness of these days we live in. This is what Jesus meant when he said that there would be some that would even deceive the very elect if it were possible. So yes, the demonic forces of Satan, the entities that are going to be and are already affecting people. What does it all mean? And how can we learn from the situations? There are good angels, there are bad angels, there are demons, there are angelic hosts, there is forces of darkness, and there's the forces of light. These things are all seem to be converging. So pray for the peace of Jerusalem today. Please do that. Amen. God bless you guys. 11 days away from the aliens above and below. That webinar will be powerful. Meantime, during these next 11 days, anything could happen in the Holy Land or in the Middle East or in Europe with Russia and Ukraine. Anything could happen because we're at the end of days. The coming apocalypse is near. Have you given your life to Jesus Christ? A lot of folks did yesterday. Last night's broadcast, a lot of folks got saved. A lot of people rededicated. The Lord really, and people are still getting saved watching the broadcast. So we know that Jesus is coming soon. You want to make sure you're on his side. Yeshua, Jesus Christ, the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords. I'll be back with more. Today, a very busy day. I'm going to be interviewed here in about a half hour on by Eric Jajewski on his podcast, which is the largest Catholic podcast in the world. And then this afternoon, I'm going to be interviewing Ellie Marzulli for the webinar. And then this evening, I'm going to be interviewing Laura Eisenhower for the webinar. So, and then tomorrow, I've got 2 more to interview. And then Wednesday, some more to interview. And so all of these interviews are now coming. That's making what will be the great webinar, Aliens Above and Below. Give your life to Jesus Christ. Tell everybody. And pray for the peace of Jerusalem. You'll prosper.